This is the Mind Body Detox Podcast, where we discuss all things integrative health and wellness, interviewing folks from all over the world, sharing insights and wisdom on how to live a healthier life in mind, body, and spirit.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Mind Body Detox Podcast. I am your host, Integrative Intuitive Medium, Lovehart. Today, I have special guest, Michael DeHoff, with us, and we're really excited because this modality that Michael offers is very unique in the healing world for your body health, and we're going to talk about that today. So, Michael, I first want to introduce you as far as your background and who you are, and really what your training has been and what got you involved not only in GOATA movement, which is your shirt,
yes,
for those who are watching the recording,
sporting it,
but like what got you involved in this, and then how it led to what we're going to talk about today, which is pulsed electromagnetic frequencies. We're going to talk about the power of that, what it can do, and specifically this cool device that Michael has here. So if you are watching the video recording, you're going to see me get this today and what it looks like, which I'm really excited. Yeah. So tell us about what got you involved in the GOATA movement and your training and your background.
Yeah, so I'll definitely start with my background. When I was very young, just to kind of add a little bit more into it. When I was young, I was somebody who was very sedentary. I was one of those kids that didn't really want to go out and play, do all these other things that other kids were doing. And a lot of it could have been down to a whole bunch of stuff. But eventually, while I was in my early adolescent years, I became very, very much to the point where I was a little bit too much sedentary. And it took a lot to actually get me out to get up and move. And thankfully, from a friend, I was able to actually get out, do some stuff. I would go work out in the gym and, feel great. Even if you do know what it's like to work out in the gym, you do know when your worst days are and your best days are. And unfortunately, some of my worst days led me down to the actual career that I ended up taking. So I always want to throw that in beforehand. But, after high school, I was looking to really engage myself into something that was going to be something fulfilling. I had a lot of options growing up. Everybody tells you to go left, go right, do this, do that. For me, I wanted to focus on myself because at the time, like I said, I was very, sedentary. I wasn't moving a lot.
Most of the kids this
weight.
age.
Most of the kids this age,
day and age.
Yeah.
That's video games, gaming. Like that's even more common nowadays.
Yeah. And something like that just is all part of, this new revolution of technology that's coming around. You'll see it a lot with like iPads, video games, different types of computers. And these are all just things that are, while they're very important for, the developmental, the psychological aspect of your early childhood, essentially, they can also be very, very damaging in the sense of leisure for the body when exposed to long durations, which, for me, I was exposed to that way beforehand, even today. And, that's something that, it's very hard to get out from.
Well, most of us don't understand unless we okay, I went to school to understand what actually happens to the body in the long term to not just the function, the movement, but then how that affects the nervous system, the immune system, like everything of this lack of movement. So tell us about you have your bachelor's in kinesiology. So you learned all the cool stuff about movement, and then you went, where'd you go from there?
Yeah. So everything finishing up with the high school thing, it led me to the path where I wanted to get my bachelor's of science from Penn State to study kinesiology, to understand anatomical, physiological components, to make me feel not only secure with working with other people, but secure with myself. And really, it was about a self-motivation thing that I really wanted to do, and I achieved that. So when I was in the actual, thick of it, if you would, with college, I was learning a lot and I was understanding a lot of important things. But the problem was I never really actually solved how to get out of pain, from working out at the gym all the time to sustaining, very uncommon injuries that you would if you normally were just moving around with your day-to-day life. And eventually what I would later on find as, GOATA coach now, at current time, an actual student, I found that, a lot of today's academia doesn't really get you to be pain-free. Actually, it's a lot of reverse ideologies in the sense of it's more about making money and fulfilling a lot of things within the industry. So that way you can make a living off of, someone else's health. And,
so you're talking mostly a lot of these people are really, really into athletics.
It could be athletics,
or
it could be performance standards, or just overall health standards. Holistic wellness is also something that plays a part to that. But
you're saying it's not geared up to like, hey, let's actually get you functioning so that you're only on a maintenance schedule. Let's get you coming in again and again and again so we can keep draining the water.
Yes. And now I'm not saying every practice is like that.
Yeah, for sure. Because
obviously not every practice is like that. So don't like go home and just start measuring, like if you are listening to this, that, and you do have a practice that you feel a certain way about, not attacking them at all, because one, I don't know them, and let alone what they're doing for you. And if you are getting something from that, that doesn't mean you have to change, right? So, but when it comes down to what I've been exposed to and what I've been, learning and developing early on in my age, I'm only 25, 30, 26 this year, so there's still a lot of time to learn, let alone treat and do a whole bunch of other things. But when I was in college, this is bleeding into, becoming a GOATA coach as well as, a practitioner in that sense. I was having trouble, like I said, feasibly finding the right issue or not the right issue, but the right thing to attack this issue that I've been having with, my pain, my discomfort with stuff, with injuries over the course of those, 5-6 years in that time frame, from going from a teenager to, a young adult. And what it turned out to be was that everything with school is just teaching you the blueprint. There's this blueprint that you need to follow. And when you get into them, let's say you dive into certain things like physical therapy, or even like massage therapy, since you are a massage therapist yourself, you can easily find things that are tailored to fit a certain agenda. It might not be quite what the person that you're working with needs. So when I did end up getting close to finishing my bachelor's degree, and I was looking for ways to really promote myself in sense of, like I said, that self-worth value. How am I going to be okay with myself if I'm working with someone else? How can I have them trust me because something worked for me? And when I fell into this path with GOATA movement, that's where everything changed. Everything that I learned from, anatomical functions to, physiological production, when it comes down to energy, everything that involves just itself, the human body with movement, was derived from GOATA movement. And thankfully, I'd like to also shout out to this individual, because you have to say who got you there. But there was a coach up in Harrisburg. So if you guys are listening locally, you should probably know where that is. But Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, named Coach Dave Brixius, and he was a strength and conditioning coach, as well as a speed and agility specialist, who at the time when I was going in finishing college, was asking for individuals from colleges to go out and learn and do some practicum work, and yes, I was highly unpaid and that's quite okay, because at the time I'm looking to, explore, I'm looking to learn. So I learned a lot of this from Coach Dave up in Harrisburg at Explosive Sports Performance Training. And essentially from there, it's really started this journey to really find out what is wrong with actual exercise science, and seeing those kind of things happen where, someone can go out and do so many great things, but all of a sudden they take one wrong step and now they're injured. Where's the causation in that? And the cool thing with GOATA movement is that it tells you almost right off the bat. And yeah, you'll have a lot of functional movement practices out there, and they all have their own format, if you would. But overall, when it came down to the whole conception of what the human body is designed to do, what I learned from GOATA movement has completely changed everything, even at the academia level, or the academic level, if you would. So
it's kind of going into more of this pioneering, if you want to say it's that, a different paradigm of thinking. In the way that you would treat your body, the way you would train your body, the way you would move. And so when you were talking about energy, not everybody, unless they're like, I have my bachelor's in kinesiology too, I understand that the way you move and the way your posture is actually affects the energy. And can we talk a little bit about that? The amount of energy you have and how that posture, can we share a little bit practical examples for the audience?
Yeah, so big practical examples I'll go into are sincere things that you don't even really look into. A leisure is a big one. So what are you doing with your leisure every single day? How do you account for all those minutes that you spend perhaps resting at a chair, playing video games on the couch, even to the extent of how are you actually utilizing your body while you cook, just very, very small things.
So how you're standing,
how you stand,
are you leaning, is your head like this, that kind of thing?
Yeah. And all these things are small little nuances that we look at for alignment. And that's really what it is with GOATA movement, is that what we're looking for is these little nuances that we need to apply to get you to be pain-free, decompress, to, maybe give you that extra edge in your sport if you're looking at from an athletic standpoint. And whether you go home after you train, or maybe you're someone who's done work at the office, or maybe you're just even a stay-at-home parent, you could easily find yourself in these positions that are not uniform for what our body was originally designed to do.
Well, I think it's important to note that not everybody that would be, wanting to do GOATA movement of be high performance or athletes, but it's also really relevant for anyone to understand so that they can improve their own quality of life.
Yes.
Because I can only imagine, like, if you're starting to move in the XYZ axis plane in a way that's better for your posture, and I just know how it affects the spine and the nervous system and the energy flow of that. But also just it takes less energy toll on the body, correct?
Yes, yeah.
If you're moving and you're moving through space and time in a way, so you're saving energy. And I think so many of us living in this culture of coffee and caffeine, energy drinks, and not enough sleep, like any way that we can increase energy in our lives is really valuable.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is to really take into consideration of what it is that you were doing when you were a kid, and I'm going to kind of pull this back into what really GOATA movement is, with association to, energy and pressure within the body. But like, what were you doing as an adult, or what are you doing now as an adult that you're doing differently than when you were as a child?
We would not be sitting on these chairs.
No, I think we would all be on the floor right now.
And I don't want to move too much because we're recording and these chairs are really creaky.
Yes.
So we don't get the noise from the recording, but I would not be sitting on this chair. We'd be sitting on the floor.
Yeah. So everything that we've done and what we have pioneered over thousands of years is all about how efficient our body is designed. And when we look at efficiency and what we look at as a bipedal species, which is, as far as we're aware of right now, we're the only ones that can really effectively thrive as a bipedal species, right? So when we looked at all those years and years of evolution and seeing where we are today, I don't think the brain overall, and I say I don't think because I know, our body wasn't designed to sit in a chair for 6-8 hour shifts at work. It wasn't designed to go home and sleep on the couch while you have popcorn, on your lap, watching your favorite show. And especially, and I say this especially because everybody has to do this, it also wasn't designed to get into the car and go to work every day or travel, several miles or even thousands of miles over time. Your body's not designed to take these things in. And if you look at really what the nature of the human body is and what GOATA movement's really trying to do, it's trying to get you back to your foundation, your birthright of pain-free movement. Everything that you're doing is essentially an input, right?
So if you are someone that's, say, for example, you drive a lot of hours, or you're a truck driver and you drive cross country for your job,
right?
GOATA movement potentially could give you counterbalancing offerings.
Yes.
Because you can't, maybe you can't change your job or a specific lifestyle or a way that you're having to posture in a position. Maybe you work in a factory or you work in a job where you have repetitive movements or something, or you're sitting at a desk. So what you're offering has support for people to give them options to be pain-free in learning, or what does that actually look like? And then we'll of course go into the cool thing. It's incorporated what we're really, the power of PEMF.
Yes. So there's a lot of genesis to all of this, which is good. But so with anybody, and like I say, anybody, it could be an athlete, could be the truck driver, it could be the nurse practitioner, it could be whomever, right? As of today and as of the future, we're never going to go backwards, right? We're always going to go forwards. We're always going to say, what's the next best thing? And unfortunately, leisure has been kind of one of those things that take away from that. So with, the normal modern day, average Joe, if you would, right? If you need to find ways to decompress, GOATA movement is a fantastic way. It's a great outlet. You can even message me and I will give you a whole bunch of freebies that you don't need money to gain access to. And
we'll put the resources in the contacts later for this recorded option, not the live, but we'll put the contact for Michael in there.
Yeah, please. Yeah. And like with those individuals, there's so many ways to adapt and as well as adjust early on, ways to decompress yourself, whether you're sitting for a long duration or you're moving a lot. So
what should I do right now?
So right now,
I know it's like, this is not the best chair.
So out
of
respect for the cracking, which you just heard me do, I'm trying to avoid moving as much as I can. But really, anything like a chair, if you have a backrest, and right now Matt, who's behind the screen, is the best kind of version of it, which you can't see him unfortunately. But if you have a backrest on your chair and you're heavily reliant on that, as you can hear me crack into it again, right? What you're doing when you're resting in a chair, in a truck, or in the car, or while you're queuing in, at the doctor's office, right?
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're systematically letting your body deteriorate and go to what's called a front chain position. So everything you're doing when it comes to quote unquote front chain is you're pushing everything forward to the frontal side of the body. Front chain. And
so you're basically your body, you're leaning forward a little bit, or your body's having to counterbalance, if you would, right? Yeah. And tense up in that area.
Yeah.
And so what I find interesting is, so this is an example for those of you who struggle with low back pain.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people, when they come to see us as massage therapists, they want us to work on their low back. Oh my gosh, it's hurting.
Yeah.
But if you are more trained and you have a therapist that's more, they're more seasoned in either they've got training on, or they've had longer experiences that they learn over time, that actually working the front, actually working the psoas, sometimes it's glute related or it's things like that. So that's what we always tell people. Can we work on your glutes? And people are like, what do you mean you're going to massage my butt? I'm like, well, we're going to, of course, do it in a way that is respectful to you, but that's like that. And then this frontal plane working there is actually sometimes contributes to that low back pain.
Yes. Yeah. And the big thing with that is that, to make it more definitive for the listeners as well, is that you have two chains. You have your front chain, you have your back chain. So everything that you want to do when it comes to a drive gear or to forward, quote unquote, locomote, your body, you want to use with the backside, right? If you really think about it, what's easier, pushing or pulling consistently over a long duration? Pushing is always going to be better. You want to drive forward as much as you hear me extend in the chair.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with like a chair and a rest, if you have a backrest, what you tend to see is that you get this kind of rounding effect. So if you see it on the screen, that's great. But this rounding effect of the shoulder, and then this hunching and curve of the back, and you're losing this orthosis of the back, if you would, where it's that healthy spine shape that's really, really what needs to stay intact. Is that when that goes, what happens is that the erectors start turning off in the lumbar.
Yeah.
Your thoracic erectors become overactive because there's this bend, and it needs to keep everything up front. And what we'll see is this huge seepage of forward posture.
Yeah.
And that's where the front chain becomes the most active. These tissues in the front become active. The back ones start to slowly die off, deter, if you would, and you go into atrophy and all this stuff. And that's also where Electrons Plus can come into play too. Right?
Yeah.
So obviously the big thing, like with GOATA movement, really just to kind of wrap it up, if you would, is to understand that you don't have to go and get treatment for something. You're more than capable of treating yourself. You just have to be aware of what it is that you're doing throughout your day to day, how your central nervous system is interacting with things within your space, as well as how often you're doing things within a space.
Right.
So your central nervous system never really turns off. And eventually what will happen is the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, right? Mm-hmm. Once that's in and that is part of your life, it will stay there as long as it is until it's identified again. And that's what I do as a movement coach, is to get those people out of those inputs that stayed way too long.
So that's a really good recap.
Mm-hmm.
Michael is a movement coach.
Yes.
When you say what's a movement coach?
Right.
Well, you kind of had to explain all these things first. People understand why movement is so important, why it can get you out of pain, why, yes, you can go to see us lovely massage therapists and we can rub your back till the cows come home, but it may not actually fix the back.
Yes.
That's why, and even with chiropractic, we have a chiropractor here. We love chiropractic care. We love massage therapy, therapeutic massage, spa and pampering massage is lovely too. But we love really addressing the structure here at Firefly Hollow. Our team is really more therapeutically medically trained. And the reason is because we know the power of just the things we talked about, like how just these little shifts and bringing awareness to people but you're supporting, and so grateful that Michael is here with us at Firefly as a new practitioner to support what we do and collaborate with our clients so we can even help your care go further. But I think that's just really important because movement specialist, what's a movement specialist? That's what it is. Like, and that's why it's so important. So with movement, with the body, now that we're talking about moving our arms and legs, range of motion, we're talking about fluidity of joints, we're talking about posture, but now we want to talk about the nervous system and the muscular system and the structural system and how it gets stopped up and what actually PEMF is, pulsed electromagnetic frequencies.
Or field. You
right?
can go both.
Yeah. So what that is and how that can support the system. So tell us about PEMF therapy, how you got involved in it, and tell us what your understanding of it is.
Yeah. So just to kind of, even, I know we totally closed the chapter at GOATA, but I have to always bring it up because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here with this. So I have a really great network of other coaches that I'm not just friends with, but also great acquaintances with. Because we obviously don't talk to each other every day. Everyone's out throughout the United States or even in Europe and Korea as well. Like all these coaches who I'm grateful for, including the main coaches, Gary, Ricky, and as well as the other coaches throughout the network that weren't just there from the beginning, but the ones that come in that really are interested in healing. And one of them was a good colleague named Arthur Robinson. And then there was also another one, Jake Naderman, who got me into Electrons Plus, and then as well as Lloyd Robinson over in Tennessee. So these individuals who are also part of this network with GOATA got me into pulse electromagnetic field therapy. And in this form, it's guided. So with pulse electromagnetic field therapy and everything that's been around that, this is something that's been around for a long time. Well over 50 years of research, as well as countless trials that are working with many different cases, classifications that even I can't label all today because they're somewhere stuck in a paper, let alone in someone's probable treatment file or something. But the cool thing is with PEMF, it's a way to essentially ground yourself. And I'm sure enough people who've listened to this podcast, let alone have been in touch with, holistic healing as well as overall wellness, is that you're going to come across something called grounding at least once or twice. Right. And if you're really in touch with grounding, you're probably going to find something like this, right?
So I love to explain grounding because when we first hear about grounding, you might hear this and like, you're so ungrounded or you're very scattered or you need to get grounded. And not grounded being disciplined by your parents to the bedroom, but like you gotta get grounded. And so the first experience we usually have with that is sometimes maybe in a meditation or a yoga class where we talk about a visualization of being a tree and imagine you have roots growing out the bottoms of your feet and you're getting grounded. So through that meditation, that visualization. So I love that because it's a mental process that people can do to just bring their awareness from outside of your body. When you kind of check out when you're driving, you don't know where you went, like you're not in your body or aware of it, to kind of the ground and in that space. But in that meditation, the exercise of imagining you're a tree is still a mental process. And so when we talk about just the physical world around you and being physically aware of your surroundings, of the weight of your body on your seat, if you're standing, I find that more an interesting perspective on grounding because we don't always think about when you're aware of your body, you're actually grounded because you're not in your head. But when I first got introduced to PEMF therapy, it was through our infrared crystal mats that we have here. And they have settings on it that you can turn on the PEMF therapy. And there's different settings. And one of the settings that it's set at as a baseline is 7.8 hertz. And so that's a frequency, and the science behind that, I'm curious of what you're aware of and what you had learned is that it supports being in alignment with the frequency of the earth. They say that the earth's frequency has 0.7.8 hertz. If you're going out in nature, you're spending time around grass, trees, all that, your body will start to fill up with that particular frequency.
And you can measure it.
And then that's why we have this, parasympathetic response. We get relaxed. We start to get out of our heads. And there's all these physiological benefits and emotional benefits to being in that space. But how do we induce a space like that without being outside? pulse electromagnetic frequency.
Correct.
So tell me when you got aware of it and you were introduced, because that's my awareness and understanding. And then, of course, there's different hertz for different things. Mm-hmm. But in a nutshell, that's my understanding of it. And I'm like, what else does Michael know that I don't know that he's learned along the way about PEMF?
Yeah. So I've been a Electrons Plus practitioner now for coming up to a year in November. So I've had a full year of being able to operate Electrons Plus, as well as get a good understanding of what pulse electromagnetic field therapy is. And the cool thing is with PEMF is that if you're not able to get outside, if you're not able to do this, or let alone go barefoot within the grass, part of your day to day, this is a good way to really compensate for that. You're not getting outside, so maybe you can schedule something that's going to supercharge your body, just like you would if you were to go out in the grass for hours and hours and hours within minutes, And that's really the power of what PEMF is for every individual, including myself as a practitioner, is that exposure over a long duration is going to make you feel, like you said, grounded. You're not in your head. Your body's beginning to work and operate its normal functions the way it's supposed to. And the best part is there's no limitation to those benefits outside of, are you a battery or are you a dead battery? And if you're alive, you're not a dead battery. So you're more than welcome to get recharged. So with everything involving PEMF and like you were talking about frequencies, there are many ways to help induce healing as well as relaxation. And that could be physiological relaxation and healing, or even psychological, right? So those things with psychological are going to be very importantly worked around the vagus nerve, which is your first cranial nerve, as well as the pineal gland, right, your third eye. These areas that we work and stimulate as a practitioner, we're able to help induce a lot of things that are very, very hard to get on your own, and let alone very, very hard to not only get better with if you're working with things within the pharmaceutical company.
Oh my gosh. So so that's one thing that, people do have disruptions in the pineal gland function. So this is the gland that helps produce melatonin and your sleep cycles, and melatonin production is a precursor to serotonin. So depression, anxiety, those type of things, it's all connected. So when your pineal gland's not functioning, it can affect everything.
Major imbalances electrically speaking within the brain. So you're able to use the PEMF to stimulate that area. Correct.
And also let's talk about the vagus nerve. Tell us about that for those who are not aware of polyvagal theory, and what is the vagus nerve and how does this support that?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, your vagus nerve is your first cranial nerve. It's going to be one of your first neural highways that go to the rest of the body, distill areas of the body, as well as, it's an important regulator for different types of functions within the body. You have a lot of systems that you need to maintain and control that you're never going to think about in your lifetime unless you're someone in our shoes. Unfortunately, that's the burden we bear, right?
But, it's just fun for nerds.
There's nothing wrong with that. But the cool thing is, like I was saying, there's so many controls and different ways to actually impact some of these systems just by tapping in to your vagus nerve. And if you guys have an issue with knowing where your vagus nerve is, that first cranial nerve is going to be tucked up around the ear, and then it's going to come down the neck and go out towards your brachial plexus and the shoulder. And that's not the only limitation. It's also going to go everywhere else because it's such an important highway. So when we do stimulate this nerve, and specifically with Electrons Plus, because there's other ways you can probably do it.
Yawning, they say, is
yawning,
really stimulating.
Hum, if you would, right? Or whatever way, even going to a music festival and feeling the bass, right, in the speakers can stimulate that feeling of relaxation because it's so huge for parasympathetic rest. And how do we get that without stimulating it, right? And it's very difficult, especially if you have psychological problems. So in this case, when we do stimulate this specifically with Electrons Plus, what we're able to do is tap into the actual nerve and send those passages neurologically all the way up to the brain and down to the rest of the body. When I've worked with individuals and have done the vagus nerve stimulation, I've gotten people to have reactions down at their toes.
Wow.
And that's really something that should identify a lot more than what it is on the surface. There's a lot deeper meaning to what certain areas of your body can really do for you.
Right.
And when you do find those things out, other things tend to get fixed in the process that you may not even ask to get fixed.
Yeah, no, that's the part that we love educating on this podcast so much about the connection between the mind and the body and then the spirit. Even talking about the spirit, the pineal gland is always said to be associated with that higher level consciousness, that ability to have dreams, to get into an altered state of consciousness, to connect to your intuition, your spirit, higher power, whatever you call it for you. And those things, when they're shut down, how can you lead an inspired life? How can you lead an inspired life? How can you feel your best?
Right.
And especially if it's affecting your mood, all these things are so intertwined. So I'm jazzed up. I hope you guys are jazzed up about PEMF. I want to learn more. So tell us about what a treatment then with PEMF looks like with Electrons Plus. What does it entail? How do you know what to do? And what does it feel like and all that?
Yeah. So if you really want to get a good kind of experience, close your eyes and just kind of picture massage therapy without a lot of kneading of dough, if you would, right? So the cool thing is with Electrons Plus, the setup is very similar. The ideal setup can be very similar. We're in this case, you're an LMT as well. So you're using a lot of things to help aid this healing process that you're creating for this person.
So relaxing music, massage table, bolster,
blanket, anything that's going to make you comfortable. When I personally work with the individuals that I do, I tell them, put on whatever you want. And I don't care what music it is, I can work through it. But if that's something that's going to help aid for you to become relaxed, what's going to happen is you're going to go deeper into a parasympathetic state of rest. And that's very important for the healing process. So when we do operate around stuff like that, and we do implement a lot of things that help with the healing process, it makes it so much easier to use this on you because it is electricity. And that's one of the biggest things with, I think, a lot of individuals is that when they hear electricity,
I was going to say, people are like,
they get scared or, And for me personally, I was that kid, and I say kid as in I was still a young adult. I was in college. But I was that individual who was like, I don't want to get anywhere near this lab because of its electricity. I'm out. And what I would do is I'd take the notes. So I actually overcame a lot of fears with this for my own self, and I realized that it's really not that bad. So that kind of feeling of electricity not only is powerful in the sense that it is fearful, but it's that calmness knowing that it's not actually going to do any damage to you if you just sit into it and relax into it. And I know there's a lot of people out there who can be sensitive, and there are ways to obviously introduce something that is very, very strong to those individuals so that way they're comfortable. But what you're really expecting is from that overall experience of that session is to be something very similar to massage therapy. Yeah.
Well, I used to be scared of electricity because of this really crazy, I think it was like a late 80s, early 90s. It was like a movie. And I got to find out the name of it. I showed Matt it. It has like the best trailer. It's just like terrifying, like electricity shooting out of the wall. And like, I think since a kid, I've always like, whenever there's a lightning storm, whenever there's anything like Matt's going to go fix something around the house that has to do with electricity, are you going to die? Like it's one of those neurotic things. So for me, I've had to overcome it. And then I realized it was because of this movie I watched when I was like 10. But I think learning more about this, when I first got a TENS unit from one of the chiropractors I was seeing years ago, I didn't really enjoy that. I didn't really like it. It was like, if you ever had a TENS unit, it's an electrode like looking thing. You stick it on the muscle.
Electro-sticky that's going to attach to your skin and stay on there as long as it can until it unsticks.
Yeah, and then you turn up the frequency and then it'll make your muscle jump.
Yeah.
So when I experienced this for the first time, I was like, this is so better. But this is better. Like this is different.
Oh, wow.
This is, and you said it's a cleaner connection. Yeah. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so if you really look at like the TENS unit and what the TENS unit's really doing, it's very similar, obviously, right? It's electricity. We're utilizing it for healing as well as some sort of stimulation, whether it's recovery or whatever. The difference between a TENS unit and STEM overall and versus PEMF therapy is that PEMF is going to be engulfing the body with the electrical frequency, right? Whereas a TENS unit, it's going to be very much to the one area.
Targeted in one area.
Targeted, right? Okay. And essentially what we did, and when I say we as in really the owner and the creator of Electrons Plus, but what we are doing is putting that together with PEMF and TENS and basically creating this little love child, if you would, of healing. And instead of you just having electrons filter through your body with a traditional PEMF, like a beamer, for example,
yes,
you're also able to target certain things like you could with the TENS unit.
Right.
Now, when it comes to the connection, that's where this really takes the cake, right? So With Electrons Plus being a PEMF device that's going to emit the electrons through this coil here, right? You're going to engulf the whole body with that stimulation. There's no wall that a TENS unit would be providing, where it may not feel as comfortable because it's not fully engulfed in the electrical current. So when your body is, let's say, quote unquote, hooked up to Electrons Plus, and I'm working with you, and let's say I do target certain areas, you will not expect to feel anything other than this stimulation. There is no direct pain, unless if you had some sort of a problem going on with the tissue, then you would experience maybe something like that. But overall, if you have healthy tissue and if you're working on the body, you're not going to have any sort of discomfort or any kind of weird shocking feeling.
Right. And I didn't experience any of that.
And for the most part, depending on the area, it feels like you're getting a massage done, which is really neat and really cool, especially around the areas of high tension, the shoulders, the rhomboids, the traps, these areas where most people are like, man, I don't want anybody to touch me there because I'm just in so much pain. This is a great way to melt that away, putting the butter in the microwave, if you will, and just hitting till the end.
So let's talk about this pairing with, the GOATA movement, and as a movement specialist, helping people to learn ways of holding their body in space, different movement activity they can do, and how this would pair with massage therapy, especially if you've been getting massage for a long time. Maybe you're plateauing with your results, or you're just not getting to where you want to be. Let's just do an example of, like, most of us have a lot of pain in the upper back and the neck and the traps. And we know a lot of times it's because of this forward head posture, the forward, and the pecs are really tight. So tell me about if you had someone coming in that was, if you're out there in your desk job and you're experiencing these symptoms and neck pain, upper back, and what would you do with that particular individual? I mean, it is customized. Everyone is unique and different, but what would you do with Electrons Plus for that person?
Yeah. So in any individual case where there is, rounding of the shoulders, there's going to be tension in certain tissue. And let's say we're looking at it from both the GOATA movement standpoint and Electrons Plus standpoint. So traditionally, before any session, the best thing to do is get a baseline assessment, right? Make sure what's going on with the body is not just something that you're feeling, it's also something that we're seeing too. And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong with, or I don't want to say people, maybe just some practices in general go wrong with their assessments, is because they're really looking out of, if anything, they're looking like at a microscope. Right, of maybe not even a microscope. Let me find a better example. You're looking too far out of the box, if you would, right? You've got to get closer to the box to see what's actually in there. In this case, GOATA movement's the microscope, right? Where we can actually pinpoint and see and assess certain areas of the body based on where the compression is that could be problematic. So let's say that individual does come in and they have that rounding of the shoulders, and you also notice all these other things that fall into the domino effect. You treat and assess that way, right? Get them on a plan for them to do some decompression work, daily groundwork regimens, just something that gets their blood moving, let alone also gets them feeling a lot better, get that compression cleared up. That's going to be something that's going to help them in the long term. But let's say the problem is really severe. Let's say, maybe you did throw your back out and you have a lot of tension, and let's say you're rhomboid, right? Go into the tension with the chest too, because that's also a huge indication of rhomboid problems, right? Let's say we put them on Electrons Plus after the assessment and say, hey, let's work on this actual tissue. So when we're working with Electrons Plus and we're sending in these frequencies and we're adjusting those variables based on what we want to do, the individual with that rounding or crowning of the shoulder is going to feel a lot of that deep tissue kind of sense of feeling, where the tissue becomes awoken, right, if you would. Right, it's woke. It's now starting to become more viable again. Right,
that's the good feeling when you're in a massage. You're like, wow, I start to feel the blood flow. Everything's moving here.
Yeah, and the really remarkable thing with Electrons Plus is that if that tissue is for whatever reason dead, as far as the state of rigor mortis can get,
Can we talk about that? What that means?
Yeah. So
like,
rigor mortis
dead
is that's a very general term to say that their cells are dead. Essentially, there's no real activation.
And this is from over time, lack of blood flow because of tension and congestion, and the movements lack, like you don't have as much range of motion. You can't move your shoulder as much. And so that does put, if you imagine if you're squeezing the blood out of a piece of flesh and there's no new blood, no life force, no proteins, no things that support its growth or continued growth, it's
essentially lifeless tissue, therefore that rigor mortis state comes in.
Yeah.
And so when you are feeling these things where the tissue is coming back, and the cool thing, like I said, you can actually see the tissue come back right in front of your eyes, depending on what scenario you have in front of you. And it's really remarkable.
So you see like a flushing of
You'll
pink on the skin,
you'll see
redness,
pink,
blood
you'll see
flow.
redness, you'll see that maybe even depending on what we're working with, you could even get some mild bruising. But that's all traditional with manual therapy if you're going in those lines. But the really cool thing is you see the muscle flex.
Wow.
And you go from having a dead tissue that maybe isn't moving at all to maybe a little bit of cadence in the tissue, matching with the frequency of the machine, to now it's flexing fully, the pain is decreased, and the range of motion is increased. That's really what we're looking for with somebody in those situations where they might have a lot of grounding in those areas of the body, the shoulder specifically, right? And the whole goal is to obviously get them to be out of pain, but the real goal is to get them on the right track to do it for themselves.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in a chair all the time getting treatment. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. It's not only, not efficient for the cost, but it's also very taxing to your time.
We also know that holistic therapies are not all covered by insurance.
Correct. And I understand.
Yeah.
And
so
that's
we
part
want to
of it.
get it and treat and work as quickly as possible to get people back to a state of it's just maintenance every, just like you go to your dentist. You
Right.
say, I'm going to go get my dental cleaning for maintenance, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
And that's another thing too, is that it really, the accountability is always going to be technically in this circumstance, if we're using like this for things within your body, if it's something that wasn't already pre-existing, this is on you kind of thing. You need to be able to do the homework. You need to go home and decompress. You might need to have to alter how your life is at home, revolving around leisure, and
it always starts with small things.
It is.
Like just those small things that people can have awareness of.
Correct.
You share with them, you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I can totally hold my body that when I'm driving now. Oh, wow, I've been doing that for a week. I feel a lot better. I've been sleeping better. I only moved my head back like half an inch in the way that I'm holding my neck.
Right.
That's crazy. And so these are things as body workers, I'm nerding out right now.
Please do.
I love this. It's like people don't know. They think massage therapy is a luxury. They think it's just for pampering. And I'm like, no, not what we do.
No.
And there's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
pampering massage. But I really, just like you yourself, we really want to help people truly find being able to live their best lives. And that includes their physical health and their emotional health that is also connected to that.
Yeah. And the best thing about each individual person is that you're going to find your own little niche that gets you to where you want to go. You really just need to deep dive and find that, because you are going to be exposed to something that's new that you're probably not used to. And usually, and I hate to say this usually, and it might be more broad than it is I'm saying it, but I think most people look at holistic type level therapies as a second choice. And I think in today's market for when it comes to treatment, I think it really should be the opposite, considering that most of what is going on within the industry is very pharmaceutical based.
Right.
And here, if you come in, as far as pharmaceutical goes, I don't see us doing anything saying, hey, go take some pills and hope and pray it changes.
Yeah.
I see us actually putting in the work to efficiently talk to somebody and ground with them. And when we just talk about grounding, clear that space, right? Not only with the body, but the mind, but get them to a point where they're going to understand, like, hey, this is really on me.
Yeah.
This is all about me. It's always has been.
Yeah.
I can't rely on somebody else, but I can get there with the help of quote unquote Kara or quote unquote Michael or who, right? These individuals are here to give you that experience for you to develop on your own. So that way, if you do want to come back, it's because you want to see us and say hi, or maybe because you really want to get a tune-up. Maintenance, right? But if you're coming in for treatment and you do have a lot of issues that are very, very hard to unpack, let us guide you there and get you to that right place, so that way you can understand more of how important it is to be on your own to fight it.
Yeah.
And it's such a big deal for any practitioner, whether you're a holistic or not. If you really think it's on you the whole time, you're going to be very discouraged as a practitioner. So for the individuals coming in, that's where there really needs to be this 50-50. We're always going to give our 50%.
Yes.
How are you going to change for your 50% when you go home?
This is a paradigm shift for a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so even speaking this information about when you meet with a holistic practitioner, it's a symbiotic relationship, meeting them halfway. Where is your work and your ability to show up for that therapy that will help you the most? Instead of this I will use the word parasitic dynamic, but not in a way of like, oh my gosh, I've been parasitic to my massage therapist. I'm relying on them so much, because there were times in my own life that I've been in so much pain that I'm like, I need my chiropractor right now. I need my massage therapist. And there's nothing wrong with that, because those are times that we will go through that. But in our culture, we've been taught to go to a practitioner, to a medical person for all the answers, and we don't really have to do much work other than pop a pill. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that either, because that's just a different paradigm. Like, you know, if you have certain diagnoses, or if you have, you know, diabetes, or you need insulin, there's things that are needed for that. But we have so much more of a draw and a desire for people to find empowerment, not have to rely on other people. Because the more we do rely on other people, not just in the healthcare setting, but in school systems, in our government systems, in our organizations, spiritually, that's when we do set up almost like a ripe container for misuse of power.
That's exactly
because we're
how it
giving
starts.
it away. We're like, oh, you will have all the answers. You will tell me what to do. And of course, if behind me telling you what to do as a practitioner or as the doctor or as the organization, we make money and profit, we're going to take advantage of this and tell you everything to do. And that really, it does come down to that. So in order for us as a, you know, we're just like zooming out here, you know, philosophical perspective of like taking our power back does have to do with where can I be responsible? And some of this can be really scary, especially if you're burned out, you're tired, you're in pain, you're going, no, I need someone to save me. And I can really relate to that feeling, like whether it's emotionally or struggles financially or whatever you need, like I don't know what else to do. I think coming to a holistic practitioner with those, like leading in with your heart and saying, I am struggling. I am feeling overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. And us saying, cool, we're going to help you get back into that balance, but this is what you're going to do. And a good holistic practitioner, whether they're a coach or a body worker or a psychotherapist or someone, will give you bite-sized pieces and meet you where you're at.
Correct.
So even with Michael, you're a very empathic, aware, trauma-informed person. Most of our therapists here are. We meet you where you're at. And I say this all the time. People have a challenge when it comes to coming to see a holistic practitioner or a perspective or awareness of us at Firefly. There's like a stigma, like, I can't tell you what I eat. You guys probably all eat super healthy and never have fast food. And I feel overwhelmed with this. And you're probably going to judge me because there's a perspective of what they think holistic and wellness and living healthy is. That there's this weird, interesting shame that sometimes surrounds.
They feel like they don't belong because they're like so out far.
Yeah, I'm so far gone. I can't even go there.
Right.
And I'm like,
that's a denial thing too sometimes.
Yeah. And I say that because we live in the snack food capital of the United States, here in Pennsylvania. Like, I used to be 260 pounds. I used to work at Sheet's third shift. All I eat was candy and donuts. And there's nothing wrong with that. Still, there's no shame in that. It's just like, I liked doing that. Yeah. But I wanted to have a better quality of life. And, you know, I think I always bring this up, and I'm saying this now because I want people to understand that no matter where you're at, you know, when we're talking about this is a symbiotic relationship, if you're used to the paradigm of someone's going to fix me, that's okay. But if you know that this is what you want to move into, coming to a holistic practitioner with this, what can I do? Even if it's simple, like I know you're going to do a lot of the work at first to massage my muscles or to do this because I get to lay there. That's nice, right? I get to just lay here and get Electrons Plus. But what can I do in the meantime to take baby steps to find my own power again, to take responsibility where I can feel healthy and well in mind, body, and spirit, and just take it bite-sized steps at a time. Yeah,
and I think the cool thing is that it's it's cool when I say this because the hardest thing is just doing it, getting it started.
Oh yeah.
And everything else kind of just falls in line in front of you, and you become more cohesive with this new sense of nature that you're getting into. And while nature is very undiscovered, it is very beautiful when you do actually walk into that light. So for us as a practitioner, we're here to essentially spoon feed you the right things, and then from there on, you're going to be ending up feeding yourself because you gain so much knowledge. And that's like with the importance of continued education amongst practitioners. We do the same thing, right? We're here to make your life better every single time we get a chance. And there's so many ways to do that. And the cool thing is with Firefly itself, and in the practice, you have endless means to continue your education, not as a practitioner, but as a normal individual, whether you're an athlete or a worker. You can go online, you can find these resources through the actual practice and gain more control over your space. You have the autonomy.
Yeah.
And if you don't know the word autonomy, it is your choice. You have the access to do this freely without any way or any form someone stopping you. So take advantage of it while it's there. And I'm not saying you have to live a perfect, healthy lifestyle, because I enjoy a lot of things that most practitioners are probably like, you can't eat that,
Yeah.
but I love me and I love my psyche, and I know that makes me happy, and I'll do it here and there. And I live that sort of moderation type lifestyle,
Right.
but you don't have to be perfect. And I can't stress it enough to how many people I've worked with, whether it's for Electrons Plus or for GOATA movement training. You're never going to be perfect, but you can always strive to be there. And when you can meet that goal for yourself, and it's a very small goal, the larger goal at the end of that spectrum that you're looking through is going to be a lot easierly obtained when you're pushing yourself in the right way, the healthy way.
Yeah. So it's absolutely the small steps.
It's the baby steps. And I learned that a lot through a great doctor in psychological sport and exercise. Her name is Dr. Kinesiology. She now works at the University of Minnesota. And she's someone who has...
Candace Pert?
No, Candace Hogue.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. Hey, Candace can always be around.
Yeah.
Everybody has to know at least one Candace. But she, as an individual, she taught me a lot about, climates and caring and what it is that you can do for an individual based off of goal setting. And for us as a practitioner, it's not only important for us to deliver that experience for you, but it is for ourselves. We have certain things that we need to do to make sure and ensure fully that you are going to get that full immersive experience that you're looking for, that you've read about, that you've been wanting for yourself. And a lot of that is down to the psychological aspect of just getting in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what better to show up with a practitioner that's showing up for themselves, that's full of energy and vitality and vibrance when you come into their space and you're like, wow, I don't have all the energy and the movement or the enthusiasm you do, but you're helping me get it, and enough that I can find it for myself. And I can only imagine you're using the PEMF every day, and you're getting charged up with it running through your body on a daily basis. Like, and every time I see your energy is like always glowing and vibrant, and so just the benefits of that, I think, are pretty incredible. It is. For the practitioner sense, I have tons of energy that I sometimes don't know what to do with, and that's cool. That's really great. And I think just even for me being that sort of byproduct, if you would, from utilizing the machine and having that a part of this experience for myself is something that really tells a huge story for those who are maybe looking for something new to heal and to regulate themselves better. And having this with me, a part of my person, this is a part of my life, I can say that it is not only just safe, but it is efficient. It is effective. And with the stuff that I felt for myself as a practitioner, just using it and treating myself as well as treating others while treating myself, because I am, right? I can see and feel the difference between the beginning of a session and the end of a session. And it can be magical. It's euphoric, if you would, for the individual who is getting treatment. When they're in that state of healing and they're able to actually recoup and recover and fully engulf themselves in that parasympathetic state of rest, then they're able to actually see that, wow, my body can heal. Yeah. And you know how many people in this lifetime will have issues with healing? Everybody. Everybody. And this is just a great way to do it physiologically and psychologically. So that is just such a huge benefit for anybody, including, like I said, myself. I find it very, very fun to shock myself on my pineal gland, and yes, I am okay. When you say the word shock, that's not what I experienced. That word is shocking. Shocking, the shock word is shocking. But I don't think that's the right word from what I experienced. The sensation of that, it is a stimulation sensation, and I think shock can be a scary word. So don't be shocked. Yeah, don't be shocked. It's not a shock. It's a word taken out of context. But I'm really excited to go. For those of you who are watching the video recording of this, I want us to show everyone what this looks like, what this therapy, the Electrons Plus, looks like. So we're going to attempt to do this. We don't have any wireless microphones or anything that is potentially could be affected by pulsed electromagnetics. So we should be good. But we're going to we're going to show you guys what it is. So if you want to explain to us what the machine is. And normally you do this on a massage table. So you'd be laying down. I'm going to be sitting in a chair. But yeah, share with us what we're going to be doing.
Yeah. So this is the machine itself. So if you can see it in frame, that's fantastic. If you're just listening, it's about the size of an Xbox or a PlayStation. And there's an attachment to the machine that has the coil inside. So the coil is going to be what's in the pad, if you guys can see it on screen. And this coil is going to emit the electrons into the body. So anytime you make contact with it, you're going to be able to get that energy right into the body. And you may not even have to make contact with it. If you get close enough, you will have, you can feel it. So
if you're energetically sensitive to EMFs or electromagnetic fields, like I am as a medium, I'm sensitive to energy fluctuations in general. Like I can feel that.
Yeah.
And so we're going to hear that probably on the recording. That's okay.
Yeah.
And just so everyone knows what this little background noise, you're going to be hearing like a, and it will change depending on the frequency and the intensity that you have it. But yeah, no. So I'm going to be sitting on this pad.
Correct. So what we'll do is I'll just have you sit. So when you are making contact with the pad, right, that contact, like I said, is going to allow the electrons to emit. And if you want to, you can take this off too. That way we can see the shoulders, the neck, and everything. And when you have that contact within the body, you're electrically stimulating yourself, right? So you have that electricity going into the body, right? It's not necessarily, like we said, out of context. In this case, it was me, a shock, right? It's that stimulation that we're looking to kind of curve around the bend, if you would, to actually help the healing process with certain areas. So like how we talked about earlier with the vagus nerve and, maybe even a little bit of the brachial plexus, I did bring that up just a little bit for a second. What we can do is work in this area for the demo that we're going to show you today. So for the demo and everything, I think I did have one thing that I was going to do. Here it is. So pause. Free sponsorship.
We love them. We love Hempfield Botanicals.
Yep.
If you're not local, they're Lancaster County CBD company. Amazing individuals.
They are the great people of Lancaster.
Yeah,
they are just one of the many, and they are just a great energy to have around. So we love their products. So
you're just lubricating me right now. For those who are not watching the video, you're lubricating me with this CBD muscle recovery lotion.
Yes. Yep. And a lot of this is down to just making sure that the gliding is very easy. Like I said, I'm not really manipulating the tissue without the electricity. There will be times, depending on the session, that I may have to do something like that. But for the most part, I really am just gliding my finger across the skin, just like if someone, I know, maybe not the proper term, but like a caress, if you would, right? Where it's very soft, very delicate. And you're very agile with your movements.
And are you going to have to stand up in that chair because of the metal bars?
You know what? Out of safety, let's do it. That way we don't also have to hear about the creaking anymore while I'm moving around. So yeah, if you guys are on live, you should be able to see this pretty well. But when I have the machine on, the electricity is going to be filtering within her body. So right now, if you can hear it, that's fantastic. Right, as the electricity is flowing in the body, depending on how much surface area I apply, right, you should be able to feel a stimulation, right? So the more surface area I have, the less likely you're going to feel something. Now, the more stimulation I have, you will feel a lot more. So you might see your shoulders start kind of going up and down here a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not consciously contracting.
Yeah, she's not contracting.
That's doing it.
Any of that. That's all her on her own. So now if I put my whole hand there, it's not going to be the same because, well, the threshold goes down, right? So what we can do, as well as like how we were talking about with grounding, we can implement grounding for myself as the practitioner to increase the strength of the actual stimulation. So now if I were to keep one finger here, right, we get that shoulder to come up and down, right? Now let's say if I put my hand here and now I put my foot on the grounding mat, which you may or may not be able to see, you can see her shoulders start shrugging and holding and isolating and moving
Feels so
around.
good.
Now, if you don't believe me, you are watching, you can see if we can actually get some movements out here with the bicep and the delts. So here with the bicep, you will be able to see some clicking if you're on screen here, and you can see that. You should be able to see some flexion going down radially. And as we go up, we'll get that into the actual anterior delt, right? So as we're moving and gliding around, if you can't see this, like I said, we're sending the electrical stimulation to wherever my hand is going. So anytime I move my hand to a certain area, and let's say we do treat it and we're done, I could easily be done here and I'll be up at the bicep. Whereas if you were to use any form of stim, maybe like a TENS unit, right?
You just have electrode in one place and it stays there.
It stays there for as long as it needs to, and then you have to work about turning the machine off. You have to move the sticky, right? You got to do this. On top of that, if you're not a practitioner, you may not be treating the right place.
Yeah.
So with the help of a guided practitioner here, and we're working around the tissue, we can easily work from here to there, point A to point B, and be done really, really fast. And the cool thing about all of this is that it's pretty remarkably feeling cool. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. It feels good. Yeah. As someone who uses all myself quite frequently, I really enjoy this a lot more than a lot of things that I do normally. Like if I was going to the gym, I'd probably be foam rolling a lot or stretching a lot. Yeah. This is a good way for me to recover personally, as well as like if you're an athlete. This is a lot better than trying to essentially smash all the meat on your muscle.
with the foam roller.
Yeah, with a foam roller. It's not really helping anything, but it's going to feel pretty good.
Yeah.
So here we can feel really good, but we can feel really good, but we can actually do a lot more than just feel good. We can really stimulate the tissue and work around the shoulder as much as we can.
So if you're, coming and seeing for my particular body, for example, like you'll be assessing and we'll talk about what my movement is, what my lifestyle is, and you'll be able to not just assess with the PEMF, but also give some support in that for that movement specialist coaching and what can I do as well as what you're doing to support the recovery.
Yeah. So even if you are just like Kara just said, you're coming in for the session, you're going to get a lot more than just the session. You're going to be able to get things like homework to do, ways to decompress the body, ways to, help the detoxing that is going on within the body. If you haven't understood, PEMF fully yet, and you haven't quite tapped into the detox effect of it, you are flushing out toxins from your cells. These are ways this is a way to help prevent a lot of things like disease, specifically terminal illness, because you're essentially giving your cells that ability to recover and not become toxic. So as we're kind of moving forward here, you're going to see me move my right hand if you're on screen, but here we're going to be right over where the vagus nerve is, right?
Yeah.
Just where we were talking about earlier within the podcast. Now with the vagus nerve, since it's so sensitive, it's a very, very superficial type level nerve. You're able to really get a reaction out of it. So I did drop the pulse right here just so you're able to see that I'm not, coaxing anybody.
It's going down into my thumb.
It's going all the way down to her thumb. Now, because she said that means that she has a pretty open neurological highway within her vagus nerve. There's not too much compression. There's not, issues with the nerve, getting the actual stimulation. So here we can work not only physiologically for benefits, but we're also raking in a lot of reward for the psychological too. So with vagus nerve treatment and everything, what you're getting a lot of relaxation by getting put into a deeper state, into a parasympathetic state of rest. You're also reducing a lot of things like anxiety and depression, stress, and any sort of thing that might be malleable for your brain after a long day. So this is really, really good for that purpose. And really overall, it's so cool to see. And usually what I say, if I do this at an expo and someone is kind enough to let me work on their vagus nerve, Kara, thank you. Yeah. Initially, if you haven't been to the New Visions, you should definitely check that out. When I am working with that, it's really, really cool to see that response right away. Yeah. And it's very, very, very fun. And I think a lot of people get a good kick out of it. And what I was going to say earlier, too, is that the vagus nerve is kind of like Vegas itself. It's a party. So you have a lot going on there. Now, that was just kind of a great example when it comes to the setting. So if you saw earlier, you saw her shoulder was just kind of rounding up, if you would, right? It's going into a state of flexion. All I did was drop the pulse rate to a very, very low frequency. And that's how we were able to get that reaction to be so systematically patented the way it was. And that's a great way to also explain what we're doing with the actual treatment, depending on the frequency. So a low frequency, like we just saw with Kara's vagus nerve here, that's something we're looking for relaxation, whether it's within the nerves, the muscle tissue, or the mind. The higher the frequency, the more exposure, right? The more exposure we have, the more we're trying to hyperactivate the tissue, hyperactivate the cells, get them to recharge, and essentially recover tenfold.
So that dead tissue, you want to be doing higher frequencies. If there's now, talk about what about now it's common if you're diabetic to get neuropathy of the legs, the nervous system, the leg nerves kind of just over time deteriorate. Can you tell us a little bit about how that and PEMF works as well?
Yeah. So the cool thing with PEMF...
Are you done with my demo?
Yeah, if you want to get up, you're more than welcome to. I won't force you. Unless you want to get shocked more. But overall, when it comes down to anybody with neuropathy, I think the most common one now these days is going to be diabetic neuropathy, just because more people are developing, issues with insulin and all this stuff, right? But overall, with diabetic neuropathy, when you start losing your feeling in the peripheral areas of your body, it could be your fingertips, it could be the toes. Most common, you probably get the feet, right? That's usually the most common. And when you work with individuals who do have neuropathy, specifically diabetic neuropathy, you're looking to regrow those nerves to meet the ends that they were before. So when you do have this reduction of feeling, and as well as a reduction of proprioception, because not only are you losing the ability to feel, you're losing the ability to coordinate properly. So when we work with individuals with that actual problem, we're able to regrow some of that tissue to be able to regain function as well as sensation. So those two together, hand in hand, when we expose them to Electrons Plus, we're able to restructure how that's going for that individual. And there's enough research out there to really back it. There's tons and tons of scholarly articles. So if you are someone who does have diabetic neuropathy, you could even just go to Google Scholar. Pretty much all those articles are free for use. And there's tons and tons of stuff you can read about that will tell you, not specifically Electrons Plus, but how PEMF therapy itself can really help those individuals with diabetic neuropathy. And after working with, several cases now with neuropathy, I can say that there's no better feeling than watching someone smile because they can wiggle their toes again. And it's really, really unique. And for me, it's humbling too.
Yeah.
You have no idea how easy it is for the body to fall apart. That's why when it comes to like maintenance, that's what we're really looking for is maintenance. Treat it like your car.
Yeah.
Get your tires done.
Yes. Get your frequency up.
Get your frequency up. You know, every time you come in, whether it is for like Electrons Plus or for a massage, think of it, it's tuning. You're fine tuning your body to make sure that you're able to go to the next step, if you would, or that extra level that you haven't got there before. That's how you do it. And from our standpoint, when it comes to treatment, we treat, but we also want to be able to see you maintain. And that's something that's very, very important, whether you are someone who has diabetes or neuropathy or any sort of kind of disruptor within your life. You can manage these things.
Yes.
And it's very, very, very pliable to you.
So so you can understand then if you say to someone, hey, this PEMF could potentially help you with pain and also the emotions and with your sleep, because the vagus nerve stimulation. I think until people get this full explanation of why, it seems like that's just is it a magic pill? Like, no, it's another tool. And that's like why I love holistic wellness so much, because these are all tools that address from a broad spectrum instead of just, okay, we're going to treat only a symptom. Let's figure out why the body's getting in dysfunction in the first place, and let's treat it that way. Yeah. So, when you would come to see you for a session, you'd be able to assess and, feel the tissue, feel what's going on with the either block or the dead tissues you talked about. But also, give people some homework, as you said, but also, support any of the massage therapists or the body workers that you are seeing currently to say, hey, I sense that this is what's going on. This is what was going on with there wasn't a lot of flow here in the pec or whatever. So it might be very supportive for them to share with their other body workers and massage therapists some of the work that they can also support and piggyback on to continue to move them in a good direction.
Yeah. That's one thing ideally with having more than one practitioner is that you have many ways to play devil's advocate with your body. And I think the cool thing is that really does take this to the next level, is that you're able to actually watch these neurological highways tune. And if something's out of tune and it's something maybe that I can't fix, well, who says that this person down the street, now they know that this isn't really working, can't help you? And maybe the person next door, even here, can give you that sense of relief that you're really looking for.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. It's just finding the right thing to get you going. And whether it's Electrons Plus, LMT, Reiki, et cetera, the whole goal is to get you to feel as confident as possible within yourself So that way, psychologically, you are headstrong, you're resilient, you're able to overcome small things that could have been bigger if you weren't as resilient.
Yeah.
So that's really the power beyond not just Electrons Plus, but beyond overall holistic healing. Yeah. We're here to give you these tools to really develop how you want to essentially interact with your environment and the world.
Yeah.
It's really, really important. And that's really unique too. I'm glad you brought that up, because when I am quote unquote testing, really looking to see where things are going wrong or right with the body, it's very, very easy to show up. It's actually kind of silly how easy it is to measure that. And from you as a person, if you are getting work done, you're going to be able to feel the difference as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've worked with your self-care. I've done work with you. You can feel the difference between one session, between two sessions.
Oh, yeah.
To now where it's like specifically with your calf. Like I know we're going to throw that in there just to add it in.
Yeah.
But you feel the difference between tension, where these muscles really haven't been giving that extra care.
Yeah.
And let alone, you may never have found that if it wasn't for where the electrons were going.
Absolutely.
And that's really the power of it. So we know the problem. Can we fix the problem? And that's where the minds, if you would, come together here, especially at this practice, to give you that experience, to give you that fulfilling, feeling at the end of it all.
I mean, now that I think about it, now we have you, and we have a chiropractor, we have massage therapy, we have psychotherapy, we have nutrition. I mean, there's
it's a jack of all trades.
There's a lot of things that can really help you get to your best. And I really encourage people out there to, if you're not local, to look for that mindset of a practitioner who's wanting to collaborate and be a team member on your wellness team to help you get to that best.
Yeah.
And also, we'll put in the show notes as well how to find a GOATA movement practitioner, because they are not just local, and also an Electrons Plus practitioner is a finder. Put in your zip code and find them if they're available. And I believe you said right now other Electrons Plus practitioners in the Pennsylvania area. What is the prevalence of this type of practice?
I'm one of 3 right now in the state.
So one of 3. This is one of 3 Electrons Plus practitioners in the state of Pennsylvania. So
that's
you're
big. Yes, yeah, thank you.
We're gonna flock. We need to get a new schedule because there's no one else right now.
Yes, the Susquehanna Valley is not only just blessed with a lot of forms of healing, but now they also have this blessing of getting that healing from the cellular level. And I think that's really important. Just plug your phone in at the end of the night is what you do, right? When you go home, you go to bed, have your energy for your phone so that way you can do whatever you need to do. Think of that with your body. Plug in your body after a long month or maybe a long week, or maybe you just took a huge vacation and now you're just drained from that.
Yes.
This is a great way to recharge your life, as well as those energy levels that you're really looking to kind of lift up. And yeah, if you are here within the Susquehanna Valley, you don't have to travel far at all. Closest you can get maybe is Scranton and then Pittsburgh. And those are the only other 2. So if you are within the area, this is a great place, to come for that actual service. And for whatever reason, if you can't come in, that's okay. I can also come to you, which makes it even better.
Yeah.
And
we have 30 minutes. You do 30-minute sessions, 60-minute and 90-minute treatments.
Yep.
So, and of course, stay tuned. If you are local, there'll be lots of opportunities to show up on certain days that we have certain special events that are public that you can come and get a very
fun recharge.
Very fun recharge, or a free demo experience. If you want to experience it before you're like, I don't know if I want to pay for a 30-minute session. I want to know what it feels like first.
Yes.
That we'll have a few opportunities to do that, to come in and experience what this is and what it feels like on your body.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and if for whatever reason you do have more questions, you could always reach out to Kara and myself, as well as maybe any other of the practitioners that are maybe more local to you. I know that for the majority of people that are looking for either GOATA Movement or Electrons Plus, is that the problem is, I don't have one near me. What do I do? And really the easiest answer is be patient, obviously. But if you can, for whatever reason, get to one and maybe learn from them and find out ways to help your body, by all means, use those links that we're going to provide, because, there's tons and tons of practitioners, whether it's for GOATA Movement or for Electrons Plus. There's quite a few. There's definitely a lot in the United States, and especially GOATA. There's a lot now worldwide. including places like Korea, Germany, Australia, et cetera, et cetera. These places that, if you are listening, there is a chance for you to work with some of those individuals. And maybe you just need to just ask, hey, how can I get into this? How can I get started? And they're going to give you that right direction. Now, with Electrons Plus, if you do have a local practitioner that isn't quite me, which is quite okay, please do reach out to them and ask these kind of questions. And if for whatever reason you don't feel like you're ready to ask them a question, or maybe you feel more comfortable talking to me about it, I do sacrifice my time because I love to give that experience for someone, even if you aren't working for me. I want to ensure that everybody who does have this machine is ethically working with it, and as well as giving you that caring experience that, you know, we would provide here for you. And that's really what matters. I think at the end of the day, is that we're keeping it a caring, task-oriented environment for everyone. And that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited. I'm hoping that you guys are really super stoked about trying this, and also even learning more about PEMF in general, because even if you don't have access to Electrons Plus, there are a lot of devices out there just to get the benefits of PEMF, like the infrared crystal mats that we work with, that's Healthy Line. We love them. And they have some really great devices that you can lay on that also have the infrared heat, that you can get the PEMF. Now, it's not targeted like yours, but it does have the capacity to put on different frequencies. And we love them. But I'll put in the show notes too, if anyone's interested. If you're not even local, you can actually get like 10% off and free shipping. We have like a nice coupon code with them. They're awesome. So we can put that information out there if you want. But other than that, is there anything else you want to share about Electrons Plus, about GOATA movement, about working with you?
I mean, outside of everything that we kind of talked about today, I think the biggest thing that I want to share is that there are so many ways for you to be the best version of you. And I don't want you to think that there's only one way to do it. There are many ways that you can be the best person that you can be as a person. And when it comes down to forms of healing, there's many avenues. And this is just a great example of a location that gives you this, like I said earlier in the podcast, autonomy. It gives you the right to choose how you best see yourself healing, as well as utilizing yourself in today's environment. And I think that overall, what we have as practitioners is that push, if you would, that gets you to that direction. And I think a lot of the people today will find that you can do it. You just have to really think about it. You really have to process. You also have to prepare, because it's going to be a journey if you are someone who's struggling with pain, or maybe you have other kind of responses that aren't quite working for you. You have the ability, and you also have the support here, as this team is here for you. So, but that's pretty much all I need to say. I really like to always end it like that. You know, you always have this ability to heal. Just find the right niche for you, and you will definitely get it, whether it's Electrons Plus, massage therapy. Just be happy, be merry, and just enjoy the time that you have here, because it's very short. Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
It really is. So, and that's what I'm doing here. I enjoy healing with people and sharing experiences. So
yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys so much. Thank you for coming on and joining us and being a part of our team.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad. Both great things.
Yeah, we're so grateful for that. But if you guys have any questions, as Michael said, you can reach out to us directly. You can, of course, comment on this post, on the podcast. There is some Google form in the show notes that I always have for if you have any further questions, because we can even have you come back and we can do another episode if we want to talk specifically about something else or something that you talked about, that you touched on, and we want to go further into. And again, we don't do those episodes unless you really ask, folks. So if you really wanted to do it, just let us know. Some people keep their questions to themselves. Like, oh, I don't want to bother you. I'm like, no, please do. We love to hear questions. We love to answer them. We love to give back to you. And we only know to give back if we have communication open. So let us know. But other than that, thank you again for coming on with us, Michael.
It was a pleasure to be here. It was really fun.
Yeah, thank you all who tuned in live. And thank you those who are watching the recording. And again, we appreciate you all. And be well until next time, my friends.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Mind Body Detox Podcast. We wish you wellness and health in your mind, body, and spirit. And be well until next time, my friends.